Welcome to Rucks, Mauls and Oval Balls. That's right, we have a jingle. I hope you're enjoying it. But this, episode 4 of what is quickly becoming every fan's favourite fan-led podcast. And that's how we introduce ourselves now, Rory. How are we doing?
Well, significantly better now we have a jingle.
Well,
I couldn't be more excited by that. This is feeling very, very serious.
If there's not a more obvious example of levelling up a podcast, I haven't seen one.
I don't want to hear about it.
I don't want to hear about it. And as is tradition now, I'm going to start off the podcast with a couple of statistics about the podcast itself. You will be amazed to know we are now downloaded over 300 times, and one of these downloads happened to have been taking place in Girona, Spain.
What was going on in Girona, Spain this week?
I have a funny feeling that maybe there might have been some people throwing a funny-shaped ball around. So I'm not saying we've made it. I'm not saying we've made it, but, you know.
I hate to speculate, as you know. I'm not one for speculation, but I'm fairly certain it was Steve Borthwick.
Well, we'll get on to that, because if Steve Borthwick was listening, his team selection really doesn't quite go in line with our ethos. But we'll get on to that a bit later. So everyone is aware, episode 4 of Rucks, Mauls, Oval Balls, everyone's favourite fan-led rugby podcast. And this episode is going to be a little roundup of the round 11 of the Premiership rugby. We're going to do a little bit of fun with a stats game, because, you know, I can't be without stats for too long. A little bit of build-up to Six Nations. A little look at our under-20s Six Nations. Maybe some news from the Democratic People's Republic of the Front Row. And if we've got time after that, some questions as well. But yes, as is going to become absolutely mandatory, mundane banter time. Rory, what mundane banter do you have this week?
Well, not much to report this week, David. No game for Westcliff 2s at the weekend. Disastrous. All my game fitness I built up the week before has exited my legs immediately, so I'll have to build that back up again. But all that meant was I had more time to watch great rugby on the telly, which, frankly, is a huge consolation prize for me.
Well, that is a huge consolation prize. And, you know, I can't help but notice you've been 4 weeks now without asking me how my week's gone.
Yeah, this has been pointed out. So I'd like to take this opportunity to, under no duress, ask you, David, how's your week been?
Well, it's my birthday week. So I am going to be turning the grand age of... And I'm really looking forward to, you know, getting that 1 year older, 1 year wiser. Celebrating it by venturing down to the southwest to the lovely town of Falmouth.
Glorious.
And on that dull bombshell, that brings an end to the mundane banter.
What a segment.
What a segment that is. And with that, we're going to talk about Premiership Rugby Round 11.
Oh, can't wait. This is my favourite thing. I love talking Premiership Rugby. I was so glad to have it back after the dearth of Champions Cup rugby, to get back into some proper games.
And quite right. The Champions Cup, let's face it, it doesn't hold a candle. It does not hold a candle to Premiership Rugby. I may be biased, perhaps.
Arguably, yeah.
Arguably biased. I'm trying to be upbeat because I'm very aware of what the first fixture is. And that is Harlequins versus Northampton Saints.
Friday night lights under the stoop. I'm going to start with my opening note that I wrote in block capital. I don't know what the crowd wants. The atmosphere was atrocious. It was so quiet, and I don't understand it, because it was a really fun game of rugby to watch. I'm assuming that Southwest London is in the dying throes of dry January and couldn't possibly get up for it. Too many people in consultancy gilets couldn't find the excitement to enjoy this game, because I really enjoyed watching this one.
Yeah, despite the result, I did enjoy the game. I very much enjoyed the game. Taking away my saintly biases, both teams played really exciting rugby, I thought. Yes, a little bit quiet at the stoop. But for me, my overarching feeling was I didn't feel too bad about the final result from a Saints perspective.
Yeah, I mean it's a strange week in the league, sort of marooned on its own between Champions Cup and the Six Nations, and with the training camps, the England training camp specifically, meaning that a lot of teams were without their star players, which, in fairness, that may have contributed to some of the atmosphere because both of these teams contributed quite a few players to that. But what it made for was a really interesting game with some very exciting young talent, a lot of whom I thought performed really well.
Yes.
To give Saints their due, they were severely depleted by injuries as well as call-ups. So it was a bit of a scratch side in that sense. That being said, some of the youngsters I was really excited to watch. So Parland at 9, I thought had a very good game.
Yeah.
Makepeace Cubitt at 10 looked much more assured at this level than the last time I saw him play. He looked really comfortable there at 10, kicked very well. And up front, Hafar was really impressive again, and he has been actually the few times.
Very impressive 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, really powerful, incredibly athletic for a prop, and we love a prop with additional skill sets.
Do we now?
But we certainly love a prop that's got something different to show.
Yes.
And I thought he was really, really busy in the loose, carrying a lot of ball, really prominent on things like kick chase, which is not a natural skill set for a prop.
He has gas.
He's got genuine gas. It's the same on the Quinn side. Cassius Cleves,
great game.
One really good game. One moment where he'll learn from early on, where he missed a chance for an easy run in for a try by not getting his body shape right, and was snagged at the end by
James Ram's questionable tackle.
Yeah, which actually I was fine with, but I thought he was very good. And he's a player there's been a lot of buzz about for the last couple of years when his highlight started appearing on the internet. So nice to see him come back from what was quite a nasty injury earlier in the season. Waghorn at 12, looking more and more like a player who you've really got to look out for, because he has got complete skill set for a 12.
Yes.
Big, physical, bangs in D, carries really well, lovely soft hands as well, really good. He seems to have that kind of timing on the pass and the ability to create weight pass, so he's well worth looking out for.
I'm starting the campaign now, Rory, for him to be England A12 when they play Ireland. I'm starting the campaign now. I'm sure you'll jump on board. I want to see it.
I love a campaign. I'm well on board.
Yeah.
And outside him, Will Joseph, who's been sort of the forgotten man at Quins this season. He hasn't really had much of a look in, I gather, off the back of some niggly injuries, but also a bit of a loss of form. He looked really impressive for Quins. Scored a lovely try, and I thought looked every bit the player that people were talking about when he got his first cap a couple of years ago at 19, I think he was, something like that. So look, I thought this was a really, really interesting game from that perspective. Quins, we speculated last week that we thought this was a game that looked like a banana skin for Saints. These are the kind of games that they've not got over the line in so far this season. It did prove to be the case. Quinn's winning it quite late on. Cassius Cleves scoring a nice finish over in the corner.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it.
The only thing that I noted off of the back of watching mainly in the second half, I felt the Northampton side looked a little bit tired in the second half because it had been such an attritional game with the back and forth, a lot of kick chases. I just got the feeling that the experienced players that Northampton were leaning on were just probably feeling it in the final 20. And I just kind of saw, because the extra metres through the carry, they just stopped. And that's what got us over the try line in the first half. And I think that's why Quins were able to claw their way back into it and take the win in the end.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Tom Pearson was really, really prominent early on. Scored a very nice try himself, and was very good, particularly in the first half. It was quite an untidy first half, but not unusually tidy really for this type of game. He was really, really prominent, but faded towards the end there. So you're probably right. They probably did lack a bit of impetus off the bench.
And another fact or stat I want to draw out, which probably is contributes to Quinn's victory is Harlequins conceded only 4 penalties that entire match.
Did they really? That's very impressive. Yeah.
Usually, if you concede that few penalties, you give yourself every chance in a game.
Yeah, the rule of thumb generally is if you concede less than 10 penalties, you're always going to be in with a shout. So to concede 4 is really impressive. One blight on the game for Quins, though, was James Chisholm going down in the first 20 minutes with what looked quite a serious injury, possibly an Achilles, something along those kind of lines, which could prove really tricky for them for the rest of the season because he's been very superb. Important. And he was playing well up to that point as well. He was very prominent.
Yeah.
So we wish him a speedy recovery because I've really enjoyed watching him play this season. I'm a big fan of his.
He's kind of been doing a bit of that heavy lifting that some of their players who probably haven't been in form, he's really been stepping up to the mark. So, yeah, wish him a speedy recovery for sure. But the game ended 22-19 to Harlequins. Northampton get the bonus point to go back with. And as we get through the rest of the round, where there's been some funny results, a point's not too bad for Northampton in the grand scheme of things. And Harlequins will be glad to kind of get the win as well, going into the quiet period of the Premiership. Now.
Wow. Can we move on? Because there's something I really want to talk about for maybe the whole podcast.
Okay, Rory, you're really going to have to contain yourself. I understand why this is going to be tricky, but we're going to talk about the Ed Slater Cup. We're going to talk about Gloucester versus Leicester. Now, before we get into the superlatives of the Gloucester performance and the match in general, how about just 30 seconds on the Ed Slater Cup, just in case there's anyone listening who isn't familiar?
Yeah, so this is something that's come about because a player who played for both Leicester and Gloucester, Ed Slater, had to retire 2 years ago now because he received the diagnosis that he was suffering from MND, which is tragic in of itself. I've met Ed once after a game. He's a really, really nice bloke. And he's been a player who, in the Premiership, has always been one of the highest quality forwards in the game. He was, in his younger years, very unlucky not to get more recognition by England because of fairly chronic injury issues he had at Tigers. But when he moved to Gloucester, he was a real stalwart for us in a team that needed someone with that kind of nous and grit and power, but with a deceptively good skill set. And he was a phenomenal player, not just for us, but for Tigers as well. It was really nice to see him getting a standing ovation from the entire stadium every time he came up on the screen at the weekend. Quite emotional to watch, really. He's really in the throes of it at the moment. But he was there with his family, with his wife and kids. His kids presenting the trophy looked like proper little tykes. They were great, dancing around with the trophy on the sidelines, and we're in the Gloucester changing room,
doing the winning song.
Doing the winning song, tops off.
Yeah,
as is tradition.
It's a fantastic occasion.
I think it's a fixture not just for the two clubs concerned, Gloucester and Leicester. I think it's a real fixture of the rugby calendar to have something that reminds us that there's more to this sport than the game. The people and the personalities are really what drive it, and Ed was one of those guys that, if you're a fan of these types of clubs, he's one of those people that you really gravitated towards when you watched. And befitting that kind of occasion was genuinely one of the best games of the season, as far as I'm concerned. Not solely because of a Gloucester win, although that obviously
helps.
Was helpful from my point of view, but
it had everything.
A genuinely really good game. It really did have everything to it. It had some phenomenal tries. It had some really good niggle. The wrestling match between
that suplex
and Mike Brown is a tough character, and he's always come across as a tough character. I've always liked Mike Brown because he is kind of uncompromising, but he didn't half pick on the wrong bloke.
Yeah,
at the weekend when he tried to tried to wrestle Kirill, who, for those that you don't know, Kirill is the Gloucester Tighthead, is a former bronze medal wrestler in the Russian championships. Grew up in Siberia where there was no running water, running with the wolves and bears. So, this is a guy that you don't trifle with.
And what was evident, has a remarkable suplex in his locker because Mike Brown felt it.
He really took him down. It was great. I loved it. Sort of thing you really, I think David Flatman was talking about this in the week in the build-up to the Six Nations, the ITV. There's something innate in people that watch sports like rugby that love this kind of stuff.
Yeah. That
kind of gladiatorial element, and it really showed in this game. Really physical. So Tigers got themselves out to a good lead. I think at one point were 28-17 ahead. Tigers gave us a really tough time in the scrum, in particular in the first half. Dan Cole using every bit of his 700 years worth of knowledge to dominate Micah Viva.
Vivas had a tough day.
And Val Rapava-Ruskin came on and really gave a show. I mean, the couple of blind offloads out the back that he threw were so good. It's so good.
Arrogant.
Oh, fabulous bit of arrogance. I loved it. And Gloucester scored in one of those offloads was in the sequence. Chris Harris, on his 100th appearance for Gloucester, scored one of the tries of the season with some outrageous hands, not just from Val, but genuinely one of the tries of the season. And that's even a neutral, I'm afraid, would have to begrudgingly admit it was fantastic, and it was a really good game all round. Some people, I think, that's worth mentioning outside of that. So Mike Brown, despite his struggles in the wrestle with Kirill, in general, had a fabulous game. He was brilliant. Set up Adam Radwan's try on debut. With a really well timed intercept. Was all round was part of everything good that Tigers did. Who scored 4 tries themselves. And he bagged his own try as well, which was well deserved. Max Llewellyn crying out to be called up to the Welsh squad.
What more does he have to do, Rory?
I genuinely don't know. I mean, he proved that maybe being on the wing isn't going to be his final position, with a slightly comical issue with calling the mark and then getting himself tackled and giving away the scrum. It was a bit of a tight call, I thought, to be fair. I think Ben O'Keefe was a bit harsh on him. But he got 2 assists. He's put in Thomas Williams and Santi Carreras for their tries. So, again, proving that if he's not international quality, who the hell is? Because he was fantastic. Gloss getting a line-out maul try, which wouldn't normally be an exciting moment, but it's the first one that Tigers conceded all season. So, from their point of view, a really impressive bit of work. But they epitomised Jouet. And I love Jouet.
We are very pro Jouet here on Rucks, Mauls, Oval Balls.
I'm an unapologetic fan of Jouet, and Gloucester were every bit epitomising that. Just one of those days when you thought, I watched the game and I thought, why do I have to watch this from my armchair? Why can't I be there? Because that looks like the best place to be in the country right now.
Well, Gloucester Rugby, if you're listening, Rory would always be willing to be there in the shed if you're happy to have him.
Genuinely, please do. I will take freebies. I'm unashamed.
Oh, yeah. Are there any other points? I don't want to cut short your Gloucester loving, but we have got a packed programme, Rory.
We do, and I won't drag it on any longer. My spin-off podcast on Gloucester Hour will cover a lot of this. No, look, all round just fantastic. Fair play to Tigers. They were every bit a part of the day.
Yes.
Their pack in particular was really, really impressive.
They were worthy sparring partners on the day. They played 100%. Their part on a spectacle, what was a feast for the eyes. If you're going to try and convince a neutral or a non-rugby fan to watch the sport, pop him in front of that game, and it has a bit of everything in it.
Yeah.
The game ended 38-31 to Gloucester. Big win for Gloucester, a real statement, getting back on form, ending this period before the Six Nations quiet period, going into this break third in the table. Real statement win, showing that they are here to be considered when it's the playoff races, I think. And I think they've really put their hands up to be included. And deservedly so. Now, I'll be very honest here, Rory. I only was able to watch the first half of this game, and I'm very aware of the score. I'm very aware of where all the points were scored, and that all seemed to be in the second half. I thought the first half of rugby in this Exeter versus Saracens match was absolutely woeful. I have never seen so much disconnected rugby from both sides. It was so hard to watch in the first half, which is why I really wasn't upset that I couldn't watch the second half. I'm glad to see it looked like it picked up, so I'm going to have to rely on you to let me know if it did. But that first half, how can this follow Gloucester-Leicester?
So after last week's podcast, I got a message from a friend of mine who was listening. Thank you for your support. Whose wife is a Chiefs fan. I was given some feedback that I've been quite down on Chiefs. And I would just like to say to Shui, I was right. I stand by everything I've said up to this point. They won this game, fair enough.
Which I will add before you get into your analysis, I predicted.
You did. Very well done. You did predict this. Saracens really struggled with the amount of change they had in this game. I think some of the players in the Saracen squad really stood up and looked at the level. Toby Elliott on the wing scored another brace. Ollie Hartley at 12 I thought was good. He was busy and he looked athletic and looked really strong in the carry.
Where have all these England 12s come from? Because
I don't know, but thank God they're around.
Yeah, keep them coming.
But disjointed, I think, was the word that you used. And that really did summarise this game. Chiefs, so they scored 5 tries in the end. And really, because their pack was bigger than Saracens, is the long and short of it. And eventually that got on top. And, they were good for the win. They deserved the win. As a collective, though, it was really quite trying to watch. The one thing that Chiefs were really effective with was their maul.
Right.
The issue they had was their line-out was dreadful.
Oh, so that carried on then.
Getting into their maul was difficult because the number of missed jumps or overthrows or balls thrown flat at the front when no one was looking. I mean, it was comical at points.
It looked like a team of players who hadn't even trained together at times.
Yeah.
And I predicted Exeter wins. I'm not the anti-Exeter one here. Shui.
No, that's me.
Shui, I'm on your side, but that first half was blimmin' heck so bad.
Some shining lights. Paul Brown-Bampo is continuing his form. Really good bit of work for, I think it was Wyatt's try. Forgive me if I'm wrong. He's starting to really look like a Premiership level player. He's really putting all the skills together. So that's good to see, and I'm really hopeful that he's going to continue that rate of development. From an athlete point of view, he's definitely, all the bits are there. He's starting to put together the skill set with it. So that's really good to see. Will Rigg is
still on fire.
I was really trying to avoid saying that again, but yes. Will Rigg was good. Again, scored a very nice try. So he's starting to look like a very effective Premiership player as well, which I think is good to see. Another English centre come through. And from stepping up from the Championship, which we'll come on to a point I want to make later on. But I think, that's good to see that someone's made that step up quite relatively quickly. Mm-hmm. Saracens were slightly less helped by Pifoletti getting injured in the first half, which really didn't help them. Hadfield struggled a little bit more when he came on. Fraser Balmain, who I'm a big fan of, Gloucester alumni, one of the most underrated tight ends in the league over recent seasons.
Pure athlete.
But he's looking,
he's looking out of shape. Like, he just doesn't look like the...
You can see he's not played a lot of rugby this season.
Yeah.
You can just see that, which is a shame. And Sarri's got a red card quite late on, which was entirely fair. Wilson, the poor challenge, really. There's not a lot more to say about it, really. I mean, Chiefs got over the line with a more established team and a bigger team.
Yeah, but it's good for the Chiefs to get another win. They're having a tough old season. A win, no matter what, how difficult or how poor the performance was, a win is a win. They can go home knowing that points in the bag, bonus point in the bag. They'll take some stock from that. They probably won't be happy with their performance, but a win is a win.
Shui, that's as magnanimous as I'm willing to be about it.
Well, you heard it there, Shui. Hopefully that's slightly better feedback for you. Please do get in touch if you have any further grievances, and we'll do our best to address those. If not, we do have a wide-ranging HR department to intervene with Rory's biased opinions. So yeah,
we welcome all feedback as long as it's good.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the game ends 31-22 to Exeter Chiefs. Not a game I want to give too much airtime to, especially considering how some of the other games the weekend went. There are some much better games to talk about. Let's move on to Sale Sharks versus Bath.
We sort of predicted this might be a bit of an odd game, I think.
Yeah.
In the way that we thought that Bath would win, but I was agonising over it, partly because of my Gloucester biases, but partly because I thought with all the changes it might be quite a strange game to watch, and in some ways it was. I think Sale will rue some missed opportunities, because I think there was an opportunity for them to win this, but the Bath squad depth, squad quality put pay to Sale resistance in the end. There was a penalty given to Bath, and Finn Russell, with an amazing bit of perception, kicked the penalty long but onto the grass rather than going for touch, and Carl Smith, the Bath scrum half, ran through, picked it up and scored. And it was that kind of moment of quality that really was the difference between these two. Ajomo was very prominent. A nice moment for Raymond.
Yes. I'm glad you brought him up.
Who came on quite early. Another young English tight head.
Take a ticket. A long line of them, but I'm very glad it's a long line.
Yeah, they're all coming through now. I don't think he's even 20 yet.
No, he's 19. 19. He's only 19 still.
Yeah, so he's got a fair bit of filling out to do, but very prominent in the loose. Alex Sanson on mid-game comms said that he's got the highest standing jump in the squad
out of everyone.
Which for a front rower to have something like that is just phenomenal. I mean, the potential of an athlete of that kind is really exciting, and he's on the bench for the under-20s later this week, which we'll speak about a bit later on, but I'm very excited to see his progress. Wasn't a player I was aware of beforehand, so I'm really excited to see where he goes.
I'm going to interject, but purely because I know you're going to be interested in this. It's purely prop talk. So Sale have two props in the England under-20s side this weekend, with McEachran and Raymond, both being from Sale. They've got Asher Opoku-Fajor, they've got James Harper, they've got Bevan Rodd.
Do you
see the problem?
Yeah.
Do you see a problem forming, though?
I see some blockages, but I see some potential recruitment opportunities for the rest of the Premiership.
So if anyone in the Premiership is listening, go shopping in Manchester. Just saying.
Absolutely. There's a lot of regeneration.
But I just wanted to put a little interjection of prop talk there for you, Rory. I thought you'd allow that during your analysis.
If there's a prop factory in the country, I want to know about it.
Heard it here first, folks.
The real difference maker for Bath in this game was actually their defence. A lot gets talked about the Bath attack because they have someone like Finn Russell there who can unlock defences as and when he chooses. But it was really obvious in this game how prominent their defence is. They just get on top of you and they just drive you backwards to the point where the teams just have no answer. It's really impressive to watch. Yeah. And some players that I think in the past probably wouldn't have been necessarily lauded for their defence. So the likes of Singer, who, I'll say this diplomatically, who I think in the past has been pigeonholed as the type of player that he is. And
very diplomatic of you.
He's a big, quick winger. And he's been used as such, particularly in his early cuts for England. His all-round game, his defence, are really, really improved, and he was really prominent in this. So I was very impressed by it. I was very impressed again by Ajomo. I mean, good, really good that he's getting a run of games, and I'm really hopeful that continues towards the back end of the season, because there's something very exciting about what he's doing at the moment. Miles Reed has continued some phenomenal form this season. Miles Reed's just been brilliant.
He's becoming a real stalwart for Bath, I feel.
Yeah, he really is. Great to see. I suppose in some ways it looks a bit routine in the end for Bath, but I think Sale will kick themselves. They're particularly kicking themselves they don't come away with a point.
Yeah, it ended Bath 32, Sale Sharks 23. So as you say, Bath just taking away that bonus point at the end, 32 points, 23. 9 points in it. I feel that's a little harsh to Sale, because I thought they did their part as well, and there's some real good patches. Let's go on to what was a rather strange game, I felt.
Bristol against Newcastle. Bristol 55, Newcastle 35. So this was going on at the same time as Sale Bath, so I wasn't watching this one live. I was following it on BBC Sport.
Likewise.
And it was one of those where I was sort of looking across at the old man and should we switch over? This is looking quite exciting over there. Newcastle really well in this game up until maybe the last 10 minutes. I mean, probably 15 minutes. I think the yellow card for Alex Hurl about 65-ish minutes.
That was the
really
turning point. Yeah.
That was when their resistance kind of faltered. But Newcastle scoring 5 tries away from home, and we're good for it. I think the difference is kind of what we've talked about with Newcastle before, right? It's that all the things that you can coach a team to be really good at. They were really good at the set piece. Their line-out was really good. Their maul was very good. Their maul defence was very good. Their scrum was really good, at least the starting pack. And their scrum was really good. And they gave Bristol some problems. The issue really was that in the end, Bristol just had too many weapons.
It's the stardust we've spoken about in the past that Newcastle just lack. Bristol have it in abundance.
Yeah, but I mean, Bill Matter and Ravuvu in particular were standouts in this one. Although Ravuvu's future as a scrum half has been
short-lived,
well and truly kiboshed. He's throwing the ball directly dead. But they were really, really impressive. Ravuvu scored a couple of really good tries and was very prominent. Rich Lane he's a player that's maybe not overly fashionable, but he's having a superb season. He was
under the radar, very under the radar.
Yeah, really good. And Harry Byrne looking like he's taking up that AJ McGinty mantle at 10. Not flash as a fly half, but does all the basics really, really well. I think at the end of the season, maybe not Bristol themselves, because they've got Tom Jordan, I think it is, from Scotland, that looks like he's coming down to fill that fly half position. But anyone who's on the hunt for a really solid mechanical fly half could do worse than signing Harry Byrne.
Sandy Park might be interested.
Wouldn't be the worst idea if you're listening, Tony Rowe. This is one of those where my soft spot for Newcastle really felt it, because there was a moment, even watching the game back and knowing the result, sort of go, God, they could have done this, actually. They really could have turned this one around. Jamie Blamire, off to Tigers at the end of the season, looks like a very good signing for them. I mean, Blamire's been very good for a few seasons now, and he looked just really good again. Just a really good hooker. Great line-out darts, prominent around the pitch. He's mobile, he's nuggety. He's a really good signing for Tigers to fill that Montoya shirt, because he's a quality player. The other standouts I thought were Lockwood at 7.
Yeah, quietly having a good season.
Really, really good. I thought Max Clark reigniting his career looked very good. I thought really prominent. And the 2 wingers, Stevenson and Pepper. Actually, the Oberto at fullback, I thought were all really good. It's good to see that Newcastle have unearthed some quality. Because actually, they've put together a performance like that in Newcastle. They're going to win a couple of games, I think. Yeah.
And I've been saying from the start of the season, I see them winning a few games still, because they have it in them.
I think they'll get some scalps. This comes on to something. I was watching this game, and I'm trying to formulate a plan for Newcastle.
Oh,
right? How does Rucks, Mauls and Oval Balls help save the Falcons?
Oh.
And I've got an idea.
Oh, tell me. Tell me about how Rucks, Mauls and Oval Balls are going to save the Newcastle Falcons.
Well, we're going to speak to Steve Diamond, and we're going to get him to open his little black book. And I'm going to get him to call every head coach, scout, everyone in all of the lower leagues in England, the Welsh Premiership, the Scottish Super Sixes, I think it's still called.
Yeah,
like
I think so.
And the All-Ireland League. And he's going to pick up every geezer who can step up to Premiership level rugby and pick them up. And he's going to hold basically an open tryout for everyone who thinks I could play Premiership rugby, but no one's given me the shot.
Oh, can we be there, please, Steve? Steve, we're more than happy to do the admin.
This is my idea, right? All the Bucks teams as well. A couple of students who got it about them. They're going to moneyball this. But more than that, there's a documentary called The Battered Bastards of Baseball, if no one's ever watched it, following Bing Russell, who's Kurt Russell, the actor's dad, who bought and owned the last independent baseball team in the baseball pyramid in Portland called the Portland Mavericks. Mm-hmm. And what he did was he put an ad in the newspaper for anyone to come along and have open tryouts, thinking they get a few players. They had like 1,000 people turn up. And they built this team that was just full of just weird characters and strange people. And I'm going to do the Battered Bastards of the Northeast rugby team.
Oh, there we go.
And turn this into a real documentary special. And that's going to turn Newcastle into the jewel of English rugby. British rugby, if I can have anything about it.
Insert applause here. Rory, I'm on board. Where do I sign up? Just, how much fun would that be just being part of that? Even if it doesn't work, how much fun would that be? Oh, imagine that. I'm so in.
You can see a story there, right? You can create a proper narrative there. There's something to follow and something to really root for.
I'm totally on board with that, Rory. If you need any help, if you need an assistant, let me know. But on the match in hand, on the match in hand, it ended Bristol Bears 55, Newcastle Falcons 35. As you say, it was actually really close up until the 60th minute. I genuinely thought Newcastle were coming back into this and were looking like they were capable of the victory. Bristol just put an extra gear in once the yellow card came in. I think it was 2 tries in about 4 minutes, and it just kind of took away the impetus from Newcastle.
Yeah.
That rounds up the Premiership Round 11 fixtures. We now go into a little break in the Premiership where it's going to feel like a lifetime, but we're going to play a little game. So, name pending, but this is going to be a game based on stats. For this week, I'm going to ask Rory to try and guess 3 rugby players based off of a line of statistics in the Premiership from either 2022 all the way up to present day. And the challenge will be he will need to guess this player within, let's say, for this week, 7 individual stats. In future, the idea is to get listeners to come and compete against Rory in who can guess these players quicker. So, before we start the game, if this is a bit of you, and this is for your proper rugby noses out there, get in touch and we will get you on the podcast to compete against Rory in this game. But this is going to be a little taster about what this game is. And I will start with what I hope will be a relatively easy one for you, Rory. I will tell you the season that I am referring to. I will tell you nothing more than that for the first 3 stats. And then you get a choice of asking position or club.
Okay.
And then we do 3 more stats. And if you're still struggling, I'll come up with some other clue. So we're going to do present season.
Okay.
This player has played 377 minutes of Gallagher Premiership rugby this season. Any guesses at this stage?
I mean, that's quite broad as a metric. They've either had a few injuries but played quite full games otherwise, or they play like 50 minutes a game.
Have you got a Hail Mary in there for me?
I will go with Afolabi for Sogban.
Incorrect.
I imagine.
This individual has made 74 tackles.
Okay, so they're averaging just under 7 a game, assuming they played every round. Fitzharden?
Incorrect. This individual has conceded 5 turnovers.
George Hendy.
Incorrect. Club or position?
I will take position.
Back row.
Oh, just that, but broad. Okay, fine. Right. Okay.
Well, it narrows it down to 3 of the 15.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh, okay. That doesn't help. Right. So I will guess Kenningham.
Incorrect. But stay on that wavelength. This individual has made 58 carries.
Chisholm?
We have a correct answer. James Chisholm was the player I was reading out the stats of there. So, Rory, 1 point. Now, we're going to up the difficulty a smidge. This next player is from last season, 2023-2024. This player played 1,078 minutes of rugby.
1,078. So across 18 games. Oh, I mean, the stats so broad.
That suggests he is a prominent player.
Yeah, okay. I'll go with Jack Clement.
Incorrect. This player has a tackle success of 91.4%.
Ben Curry.
Incorrect. This player had 7 try assists. I'm definitely going to be editing out these long pauses to make it seem like a quick-fire game.
Obviously. Janssen van Rensburg?
Incorrect. Position or club?
Club.
Northampton Saints.
Dingwall?
Incorrect. This player carried 330 metres.
Joan Augustus?
Incorrect. This player beat 16 defenders.
Chris Ludlam?
Incorrect. This player passed the ball 273 times.
Alex Coles?
I'm guessing I'm going to give you the position. They're a fly half.
Finn Smith?
Correct. I'm going to give you half a point for that because there really wasn't another option in that.
No, fair enough. Well, he makes a lot of good tackles.
Last season, defensively, he was in the top 5 of most tackles overall. He had an unreal defensive.
That's pretty good. No, fair play.
Yeah,
I'm surprised how few try assists that was.
Yeah, well, you had Alex Mitchell to share that with.
Sure.
Now, we're going to really test you, Rory.
Okay. Well, I've done so well on the first 2.
Yeah. We're going to go to the 2022-2023 season.
Right. I'm going to have to cast my mind back. I've got brain rot.
I'll try and pick one that's not too difficult. Okay. This player played 997 minutes of rugby.
Ben Youngs.
Incorrect. This player was born in the year 2002.
Ugh. Okay. So they'd have been 20 then. Right. Who was a good 20-year-old then? Tommy Freeman?
Incorrect. This player made 122 tackles.
Freddie Stewart?
Position or club?
Club.
Exeter Chiefs.
Fizzalau?
Incorrect. This player beat 14 defenders.
Boso?
Incorrect. That definitely sent you down the wrong alley. Of the 122 tackles, this player only missed 6.
Ethan Roots?
Second row.
Oh, Daffy Jenkins?
Incorrect.
What?
0 point. Christ Schunzer.
Chris Schunzer. Oh, no. Apologies, Chris.
I think everyone's forgotten that breakout year he had. He was insane. His numbers was so good. But that, everyone, was name pending. I think that's going to stick. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I like name pending.
But yeah, if you want to play name pending against Rory, if you think you could guess quicker than which, let's face it, off the back of that,
you surely must be able to.
I like your chances. Please get in touch. We will try and make this a regular thing and have like a little leaderboard, Rory versus listener. Who knows? Maybe there'll be prizes. Don't take my word for that one. But we'll go from that lovely segue of a nice little game for us all into the Six Nations. In terms of the Six Nations, how are we feeling going into this, Rory?
I'm very excited for the tournament. I think as a tournament, I think this is going to be a good year. You've got an incredibly strong, glitzy French team that I'm really excited to watch. You've got an Ireland team going for the three-peat. You've got an England side that no one's quite sure how good they are, but certainly have a high ceiling. And a Scotland side where it feels kind of like it's now or never, really, for that generation of players. An Italy side that showed last year they're really here to compete. That would be interested to see whether they can overcome being a known entity this year.
And Wales.
And you've got Wales, and they're there. And it's great to have them.
I think that's a good little summary there, Rory. On Ireland, how are we feeling going into the fixture against them as England fans? Backdrop being Tad Furlong is missing, new coach, an assumption that Prendergast is their 10. These factors may play into England's hands. I'm very conscious of all the factors that don't, though.
Look, so Ireland have played down any injury issues with Sam Prendergast. There were reports that he might have a dead leg, but they said that he's absolutely fine. He's training fully. So my assumption is he will start at 10. It's an interesting one with Ireland because they've been at a really high level for a number of years now without maybe going to another level beyond that. Which would have been difficult for any team to do, but they've not gone from being there or thereabouts the best team in the world to being out and out the best team in the world, no disputes. And there's possibly a question that a sizable portion of that squad is maybe more on the decline than it is on the incline, while still being at a high level, but there might not be quite the players they were 2-3 years ago.
Are you suggesting that Ireland's chance of being that out-and-out world best team has slipped them by?
I'm suggesting that there is an interesting time coming for that squad as to how they refresh it, and a question as to whether they have the players coming through to maintain that high level. I don't think they're going to drop like a stone anytime soon. I think there's still too much quality for the moment for us to be thinking that Ireland are an overly diminishing power. But I do think there's a question as to how do they replace someone like Tad Furlong, who's 32 now, which is a good age for a prop, but it's certainly, as a professional athlete, is a suggestion that you're probably, unless you're Dan Cole, you're probably coming into your last few years.
Probably last World Cup cycle.
You'd imagine so. Can Ireland refresh this team and bring in players at that same level across the whole squad? That's an interesting question for them to answer. Without Andy Farrell there, are they going to be able to reach the same emotional levels that they have done in games against the likes of England and France, which get them over the line where maybe they've got some deficiencies in power or they've had problems in the line out and some of their set piece? So there's some interesting questions there. But this is all summary to the fact that this is still a really, really good Ireland side with some superb players who are not beyond their peak. That being said, I don't think they're unbeatable. I think there's a potential opportunity there. Whether England have got the right side out this weekend to do that, that's probably a different debate.
So that was going to be my next question. The England squad to face Ireland, it is Ellis Genge, Luke Cowan-Dickie, Will Stewart, Maro Itoje, George Martin, a pair of Curries, Ben Earl at 8, Alex Mitchell, Marcus Smith, Henry Slade, Ollie Lawrence, Caden Murley, Tommy Freeman, and Freddie Stewart. My initial reaction to that is I worry the back row's a bit lightweight, and I worry our line-out's going to struggle. And I can see Ireland seeing this and saying, so we're going to put Tagburn at 6 and put McCarthy and Ryan in the second row.
That's exactly what I thought when I saw it. So, look, in fairness to Borthwick, I like 2 portions of curry as well. I always get 2. So I have no issues with him thinking that way. I'm a spicy curry and a milder curry.
Which one's spicy? Which one's mild?
Well, the mild one's always chicken tikka masala because it's just a classic.
No, I was talking about the players.
Oh, right, sorry. I was going to say otherwise it'd probably be like a lamb jalfrezi. I think Ben Curry's your spicy one at the moment. He's playing really, really well for Sale. Tom Curry, he's
a bit of a corner.
Some questions to answer on his form, and he's a bit milder, I'd say, at the moment.
Okay. Well answered. Answered.
But great with a naan. So.
the crossover we've been waiting for. Curries and curries.
Yeah. If you want to dip your naan into Tom Curry, you can.
please don't reverse that analogy because I don't think that could be put on the podcast. Yes. Oh dear.
So I had the same questions as you when I saw it, right? So one of the things I worry about with the selection policy for England in general is whether we're learning the lessons of the games that we've played before. I think one of the lessons we have learned is that we need impact towards the end of the game. So I would have probably started Tom Willis personally, but I would have had Cunningham South on the bench.
It is a 6-2 split. It is a 6-2 split.
It is a 6-2 split, and I think they've recognised that whatever they want to do for their initial game plan, they're going to need ball carriers to come off the bench because that team, off the face of it, is lacking ball carriers. What it's not lacking though is fetchers. You've got 3 fetchers in the back row. Curry squared Earl. Luke Cowan-Dick is a very good fetcher. Maro Itoje is a good fetcher. So you can see that England are going to be targeting the Irish breakdown, which is probably the right thing to do.
I also wonder whether the Curry squared brothers will be targeting Prendergast if he is starting to put pressure on him.
That would be my guess. And Ireland like to play possession ball. They like to have a lot of multi phases, so I would assume that we've picked a team to combat Ireland in that sense. Where I think there are maybe some lessons that we haven't learned. One of the ideas I thought for when I was picking my own England team, as all fans do, I thought, even when Jamie George was injured, I was going to pick the Sale front row on the bench as a sort of bomb squad kind of tribute. Because the way they've been scrummaging together at Sale has been really, really impressive, right? Evan Rod put Franz Malherbe back in the stands a couple of weeks ago. That's not an easy thing to do. And Asher Pokavajor, he's been eulogised over the last 18 months or so. And I'm very surprised not to see him on the bench. And I thought that was there was a real potential there for that unit to come back on and make a real difference. And I think looking at that front row on the bench, I think that's a potential weakness in this team, right? Finn Baxter's had a bit of an up and down season. We've spoken about that quite a bit. Joe Hayes, we've talked about kind of certainly some of my reservations about whether he's got the ability to step up. And I could be proved wrong. I hope I am proved wrong, but I think there's a real question mark there, right? So that's something that I think that's a bit of a missed opportunity there. I'm not someone who was ready to throw the Slade Lawrence axis away just yet. I've got a real bugbear at the moment with England fans always wanting the next cab off the rank. And I know we're guilty of always looking out for the next player ourselves, but I think there's a real argument to be made for continuity. And I think for me, I would say in that back line, with the players that aren't available, there was a real question mark about whether we needed to make more changes in that. And actually, I think that's probably about as much change as they could afford to make there.
I think that's fair. I'm more cab off the next rank. Well, next cab off the rank approach. And my pure logic to that is I think Fraser Dingwall has played against Munster and Leinster considerably more over the last 12 months than Henry Slade has. And I think defensively he offers something a bit more assured than Slade. Yes, we might lose something creatively, but against Ireland, I don't think creativity is going to be our game plan.
I see that argument, but he's not played with Ollie Lawrence or Marcus Smith more than...
Also a fair point, well made.
So that's where I'm at the moment with this. I think till there is a clear, outstanding opportunity to change a centre pairing, which for me would be something like, is this now time to bring in someone like Max Jomo or Ben Waghorn, someone like that, where we think, like, this is our 12, and this is going to be our 12, and this is the option we're taking. At the moment, I think you have to stick with that continuity, because there's not a standout player that you could say, I'm going to hang my hat on this bloke and say he's going to be there for the next 2, 4, 6 years in the centres with Ollie Lawrence. So I'm all right with it. I think Caden Murley is well worth his debut. I think he's played superbly for Quins for a long time. He's really unlucky with injuries, and I'm really glad to see him get his shot. So I'm excited by that. I think Freddie Stewart has got a real opportunity in this tournament to answer a few critics. We haven't watched him a lot in the Premiership, where he's been really good, but also to lay down a mark as George Furbank and say, I ain't giving up this shirt easy.
Yes, I'll say he is probably the player coming into this tournament in form in that England squad. And I'm excited for that, because I've been probably one of the biggest critics of Freddie Stewart over these last 12 months. But I will hold my hands up and say I think over the last month and a half, he has been excellent. And I am more than happy for him to bring that form into an England shirt. I want nothing more than to see that again. So hopefully that is what happens. Even if that means my man George Furbank loses possession of that shirt. But it'll be. I think
we'll get into a position where we're horses for courses, right? Yeah. I think you'd have both options there,
which is a good position to be in.
Great position to be in. So I'm not saying that George Furbank never gets back in this team, because I can definitely see a situation where he forces his way back to 15. But Freddie Stewart's got a real opportunity to prove a point here. So and possibly even lay down a Lions marker as well, because I think
heard it here first, folks.
I think if he has a really good tournament, he's a point of difference back there, right? And he's got the chance to say, look, your Blair Kinghorns, your Hugo Keenans, these are all really good players, but I am in this conversation. So I'm.
What's your heart saying, and what's your head saying, result wise?
My heart is saying that England, if they execute the game plan well, can come away with a win here. I think there's some question marks about whether this pack's the right one to take on the Irish pack. But if the theory holds on that back row and it works, it could be really effective, right? But the head is saying, you've depowered the line out, you've depowered the maul, you've depowered the scrum, and Ireland are a team with enough nous to engineer a game to play to those strengths and stranglehold you. So we will have to probably keep the ball in play as much as possible and avoid set piece as much as possible. Even if there is potential opportunity in the scrum, I would still not be playing for scrums. I would be trying to play with the ball in hand as much as possible. But I think if going into the last quarter, they've nullified Ireland and they're in touching distance or even ahead, and they can bring on Cunningham, South and Willis for front football, and there's still enough gas in the tank in the backs to put the likes of Murley and Lawrence into holes. There's an opportunity there, right? But look, that being said, if you were to put a gun to my head and say who's going to win this game, I'm still saying Ireland. It's just form, and it's quality. But I think England are not out of this game whatsoever.
No, and I also think if England do lose this, that doesn't rule them out of the tournament still either. Because I think this is the way the fixtures lie. I think it's the one game England could afford to lose and potentially still win the tournament, as long as they go into the game against France and get the win.
What they need to do is be able to springboard off this game, even if it's a gallant loss.
They need a performance. They need a performance.
And they need to really give Ireland a scare, at least.
So, but touching on my slight note of optimism, we'll do a little check-in with my little pet interest, which is youth development rugby, England under-20s. I don't know if you have a chance to see it, Rory. They've gone early, and they've put out a team that I'm very, very, very excited about. Won't go into too much detail, because a lot of people listening may not want to know the ins and outs of every single player in that under-20 side. They're not weird like me, but I'm telling you now, this crop of under-20s should go and copy what the last bunch did. If they don't win the Six Nations with the players they've got at their disposal, that for me, would be deemed as a failure because the players at their disposal is unreal.
The pack, I don't know every player there, but I know Capitu Pilotto, Billy Sella, Olamide Sadeki, Junior Kapoku, Henry Pollock, of course, we've talked about plenty, and Kane James. I've watched all of them, and Ty Raymond on the bench. And as an under-20s pack, that is a pretty frightening prospect for any teams coming up against. And the only team I would imagine that would have players of a similar profile would maybe be the French team, who are quite good at getting their under-20s exposure. But that pack looks tasty.
Part of me thinks that Kapoku and Pollock looked at each other and said, do we just go again and just remind everyone that what we did last year and the fact that we're both making our strides in the top 14 and the Premiership respectively, just remind everyone how young we still are. You think we're good now, we're still playing under 20s. And they thought, let's just remind everyone that we're still at this age grade. So we'll just go and do it again. We'll strut our stuff where we're going to stand out as these players. And then 2027, we're coming for you.
I think they're going to be a pretty frightening prospect for
Kapoku at 6. Kapoku at 6 is like Courtney Laws reincarnated.
That's something that
noting
excites me.
Courtney Laws is still playing and very much alive, so he's not being reincarnated, but you know what I mean.
Sorry, Courtney. We're aware that you're alive and thriving in Breathe, I think it is.
He is indeed.
Look, we shouldn't dwell on this, but some of the names in the back line, Archie McParland, Angus Hall, Jack Bracken, these are...
Watch out for Charlie
players.
Griffin as well. He's good.
Charlie Griffin, great. Fantastic. Well, I think I'm looking forward to watching the game on Thursday.
As am I.
I'm pretty excited by this team. Yeah.
So anyone who wants to watch, it will be on iPlayer, so I've been told. So try and tune in and support the youngsters, the stars of tomorrow. Today. That brings us to the latest update from El Presidente, the Democratic People's Republic of the Front Rows. Have you got anything to address your nation with today, Rory?
Well, there's a weekly presidential address for a reason, David, and that is because I always have something to express to the nation. And I would like to present the Medal of Freedom and an offer to become the DPRFR's ambassador to the Champagne region to Valrapava Ruskin for a performance on Saturday that belied the number on his back, which was 17. So
means nothing.
It's somewhat meaningless. He was so good to watch. We're advocates for props at the best of times, but watching a prop pull out a blind out the back pass twice
on both occasions where he didn't even need to do it.
Completely unnecessarily. Could have just passed it normally. But why pass normally when you can pass fancy? That's the question I've got for you, David.
Jouet.
And in my nation, we welcome that kind of exuberance. So he's my nomination for ambassador to the Champagne region. I look forward to him bringing us closer ties to more Champagne. And may it continue. And I'd like to see more props in the coming weeks pulling out the same kind of offloads. I fully intend to do so myself for my next outing.
Fantastic.
Which will almost certainly be for a second team, and will almost certainly go to absolutely no one in particular.
And probably
I will be trying it.
Probably not against the Leicester Tigers then.
No, I think the next game is potentially against Woodford Seconds. So
okay. Woodford Seconds, watch out.
You watch out, lads.
Yeah. Well,
be offloads going left, right, and centre, almost anywhere except to another player.
Make sure your subs are ready to catch any flying balls that are going here, there, and everywhere. Yeah. Val, if you're listening, let us know if you accept the nomination. I'm sure some sort of ceremony could be sorted out.
Of course.
Very, very much on board with that nomination. And very quickly, and quite rightly, the council, government, whatever, I don't know what your name is for your kind of government in the DPRFR.
I just call them the rubber stamp.
It's forming nicely, and I look forward to hearing the next instalment from the DPRFR next week. And if anyone has any DPRFR related questions, news or insight, please do send it our way, because it's one of our favourite things to discuss.
Certainly is.
Now, this brings us to Q&A. So a question from within the Rucks, Mauls and Oval Balls fraternity. Our self-appointed creative director's been in touch via Instagram. And again, thank you very much for your input, creative director. His question is to you. How important to Gloucester is it to keep Santi Carreras?
So, Santi's a player that any team would want to keep hold of if they can. He's genuine world class, right? You got to remember this is a player that beat the All Blacks playing fly half for Argentina in New Zealand. He's a player that makes Gloucester better to have on the pitch, and he's been brilliant this season in particular. Really thrived in the new style that we're playing. I think the reality of any Premiership club, but a team like Gloucester in particular, is no player is too big to be let go if the economics don't work out. And we are a club that's accustomed to having to make these kind of decisions when we let a player go and planning accordingly. So the short answer is, if we lose Santi, the team immediately becomes worse, and we've then got to find a way to bridge that gap quickly, because it's difficult to find players of that quality, right? But the long answer is, if Gloucester aren't planning for these kind of eventualities, then they're failing in their duties, really, because this kind of stuff's pretty inevitable, ultimately. So I hope we keep him. I know that a good offer's been put on the table for him, but that's not to say that better offers aren't being wafted in front of his face. I mean, if he goes to Bath, he's dead to me, obviously.
There's got to be French money sniffing around him, though.
Yeah, go to France. I mean, if you've got to go somewhere, don't go to Bath. Awful place. It's important that we replace him with quality. So it looks like we're bringing in Ben Loader from the Stormers, who's a player I'd really, really rate, and I'd be very keen to see this Gloucester team playing in this kind of style. I think he'd really work well in that. I'd like it even more if Santi was a fullback and he was on the wing. I think we can survive it. The issue we've got is, it sounds like Zach Mercer's almost certainly left. That's obviously pretty much confirmed. The rumours are that Albert Tuisui and Ruan Ackerman might be following him out the door.
Bit of an exodus.
Mercer's no great surprise. Obviously, never got the look in with England, bafflingly. So he wasn't going to stick around. That incentive. Tuisui's not really suited to the way that Gloucester are playing at the moment. He's not playing a lot of minutes for us. So, it's what it is. Ruan Ackerman's a real shame to see go. He really thrived at Gloucester, become a very good player. He's got international ambition. Probably not going to get them at Gloucester, whether it's for England or for South Africa. But also, he's a player who can probably earn a decent wage in France or Japan. Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily surprise. I think his dad's coaching in Japan at the moment.
Right, okay. So there could be something in that.
Could be something in that. We're to be signing, I think it's Jack Mann from Gloucester.
Glasgow,
sorry. Who's, I confess I haven't seen play, but he's very highly rated.
Yeah.
And we're rumoured to be in for the likes of Hoskins Sotutu or Callum Chick from Newcastle. Again, really good players. So
and James Venter. He's pretty handy.
Yeah, and he's been highly rated. He's behind Khaleesi at Sharp, which is light on anyone, really. So I think he's possibly looking for a new challenge. So look, we'll survive it, but be very sad to see him go. He's been so good for us, and even when we've been really bad, he's been a shining light. And we have been very bad in recent years. So I'd be sad to see him go. But then again, this kind of turnover you have to expect if you're a team working to the kind of economics we are. Yeah. And not to the kind of mythical that Bath are.
Had to get one little dig in.
Well, I think I got two or three in.
Correct. No, but yeah, I do agree. I think Santi, as you said, if Santi leaves, that team gets worse. It's as simple as that. All the other players, barring Tuisu, he's probably played more of a bench impact role. Losing Mercer, again, squad gets weaker. Losing Ackerman, you're losing someone who's stuck by that club through some quite tough times. Has always put his hand up to shoulder responsibility, do the hard graft, do the dirty work, and also be really good at it. So interesting to see what Gloucester may look like next season. So obviously, there's still a long way to go, but we'll have a keen eye on the rumour mills.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping to see some signings being. So, another question in over this from Drakey. Drake, mate of mine, playing in Wales, I think, in the Welsh Premiership. It's the Welsh Premiership or the Welsh Championship, one of the two. At the back of some of the chat that we had last weeks ago, after the Scarlets Gloucester game, where I posited the question about the Anglo-Welsh League, and he said, should more thought be given again to the Anglo-Welsh League, or should they bring back the Schweppes Cup?
It's a good question. So definitely two recent examples that come to mind. So one, the Scarlets and Gloucester fixture, which kind of bumper crowd, bringing that kind of bipartisan England versus Wales undertone to a fixture. I remember watching a game where I think it was Bath versus Cardiff, where I felt there was a similar sort of intensity. Yeah. And as you mentioned, like England-Wales in the Six Nations, form goes out the window. There is like this thing that happens where English and Welsh teams play each other, where it feels to be like it's the ultimate leveller for some reason. It's like tide crosses the Severn River, and all form books are out the window, and it is just all
possible.
All things are possible. Which, with in mind, it does suggest that maybe there is something in it from a spectacle, from a fan point of view, because it would be good things to watch on a regular occasion. The question mark for me, and it's a question mark I have on all these ideas that I hear about, is I'm all for it if there's a way to fit it in to the calendar. Because at the moment, all clubs are... It's a chocker calendar as it is already. I don't want to see the Premiership Rugby Cup go, because it's an opportunity. It's a chance for the younger players at the Premiership clubs to play, and we get to see them play against Championship sides, which... Yeah. I think is a real positive change over the last couple of years in the Premiership Rugby Cup. Is there something to say that, well, can't we tie some of the Welsh clubs into that? I think that may be the answer, because I would like to see something that brings the Welsh sides a bit closer, purely because of a selfish fan point of view, because those spectacles are quite good. Flip side being the Premiership Rugby Cup doesn't bring out your headline big players. So it is a compromise. In the past, there has been discussion about whether there will be kind of the Welsh regions into the Premiership, or the English teams going into the URC. Like these have kind of been around ever since COVID. I struggle to see any of that actually practically happening. So it's a hard one to say. I would like to see more games between English and Welsh sides, but what I will say, it is a challenge being put out by me, a gauntlet to the Welsh sides. I just want to see them playing in the Champions Cup.
Yeah. They've got 3 teams in the top 8 at the moment, so there's a good chance that they'll have some more representation there. I think the brutal answer to this is, what's the incentive in it for the Premiership?
Yeah.
Really?
Because how long will that special feeling last if it becomes a regular thing?
Yeah. I don't know that there's enough incentive for the Premiership to boost the Welsh regions when there's no necessary guarantee that they'll be A, financially solvent enough to compete regularly, B, actually see a big boost to their crowds on a regular basis, rather more interested in regions. I think that's not necessarily guaranteed. I think the question about the Schweppes Cup is probably more interesting. I think Welsh rugby needs to go back a little bit more to its roots, and let's drive its club game a bit more.
The 4 regions. There's going on there, and it's kind of the forgotten part about Welsh rugby. And that's where a lot of the old glory days, as you talk about, where that was born from. So definitely something in that about going back to the drawing board potentially. As we've said, maybe WRU burn it to the ground and start again, because there's something there.
Listen, I'd love to be able to find the solution to Welsh rugby. I just, unfortunately, I don't see it, and I'm not sure an Anglo-Welsh league actually solves anything for the Welsh rugby. And then
it doesn't do much for the English side either.
For the Premiership, the RFU have just managed to start coordinating. Do they really want to start throwing in the WRU to that mix to try and... it just doesn't seem like the best one in the world is worth the trouble, because, And apologies, Drakey, that we're not being a little positive about this, because I'd love to be able to say that it's the answer and should do it. But if you were completely honest with yourself, if you were the RFU and Premiership Rugby, would you honestly say that you want to get into bed with the WRU? Because frankly, that seems like a headache.
Yes, and it's not like we're saying the RFU is a really sleek, forward-thinking organisation themselves. So
No.
having the two work together, having hopes that that's going to lead to something positive, I think would be more wishful thinking than anything.
With the best in the world, the Welsh struggle enough to get on with the Welsh. You know, each region won't talk to the other regions. I've got some sort of tangential family involvement with Welsh RPA, and when it came to the appointing senior management to them, they agreed because someone was associated with a certain region, and therefore the other regions wouldn't vote for them. And then it was at player level. It's so parochial there. It's just so difficult to see till they can start all pulling in the same direction. I don't think anyone's gonna lend a hand to pull them out, because there's not enough synergy in it to make it seem like a workable organisation at the moment.
Well, thank you for ending the podcast on such a cheery note for us, Rory.
Yeah, sorry, Drake. I'd love to be more positive about it.
I think that's all we've got time for in terms of Q&A. All I can say once again is thank you very much for listening, especially if you're listening still at this point in time exactly, and you've stayed with us to the end of the episode. We appreciate your support. We've been actually quite taken aback by how quickly people have been kind of as a podcast of choice. So we're very grateful for anyone who is downloading, rating, liking, just getting involved in any way, shape or form. It is quite appreciated. For a brief moment of serious comment for you. If you want to play the game of name pending with Rory, please do get in touch with us on TikTok or Instagram, or email us at rucksballsoverballs@gmail.com. And I am setting up a community Discord server where anyone listening to the podcast will be able to join in and chat with us in a Discord server. So watch this space. It is in the works. And that's exciting.
That's very exciting.
It's very exciting. You do not find any other podcasts giving you, the listener, direct access to the hosts. That's all I'm saying.
Just to clarify for anyone listening as well, when it comes to curry orders, I do also like to get some onion bhajis, maybe like a sag paneer or a bindi bhaji, garlic naan on the side. It's, go big when it comes to the curry orders.
And with that, I'm going to bid you a farewell. And Rory, any words from you?
More curry, please.
You heard it here, people. This has been Rucks, Mauls and Oval Balls. This is the end of episode 4. Please tune in next time, and we'll be back this time next week.